Hello out there. This is going to be one of our more fun recent episodes. I am so glad you're here to join us. Kat Frick, she is pretty amazing. Over the course of this conversation, she uses candor and wisdom to share a lot about where she sees AI, how she uses tools in her workplace, and how she has really grown and evolved her own business. So if you're an entrepreneur out there, or you're running a team, or even you are just trying to get through a crazy project and you're wondering how people are finding success, this is a great episode to listen in on.
Welcome to the We Talk Careers podcast, brought to you by Women in ETFs. This is Christine Delano, and I'm thrilled you've joined us. If you're pursuing excellence in your own career, or intrigued by the hustle required to make it to the top, this podcast is for you. This is season 6, and we are dropping in on leaders across the globe. We're going to learn how to balance, how to speak truth to power, and how to have fun doing it. So put aside that massive to-do list, and let's get inspired.
Catharine Frick is the founder of Catnip, a boutique growth marketing consultancy that helps ETF issuers and asset managers launch, scale funds through branding, digital strategy, and market education. Kat also serves as the co-head of the San Francisco chapter of Women in ETFs. Through this role, she champions mentorship, community building, and amplifying diverse perspectives in financial services. Kat is passionate about elevating underrepresented voices, making complex investment products accessible, and building communities that support both professional and personal growth. Welcome, Kat, to the We Talk Careers podcast. It's so good to have you on.
Hi, Christine. Happy to be here.
Looking forward to this. I am about 85 episodes in on We Talk Careers podcast. I never anticipated that. It was like, I'm going to interview kind of my friends on the Women in ETFs board. And then it's just sort of grown into what it is. And I can't help but love it. And I always think maybe we're going to reach an end of how we think about leadership, how we think about career success. And everyone seems to have these unique ways. And you were quite unique in that when we started talking about you coming on the show, you did something that perhaps other people have done, but they haven't shared it with me. And I was excited to see kind of how you went about it and the different approach that you had. So maybe tell our listeners a little bit of what you did and what the outcome was.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. You know, I think so many of us, no matter where you are in your career, have an idea in our heads, you know, what our value add is, you know, to our role, to our firm, you know, to our colleagues. But more often than not, or at least for myself, I find that what I think is like my value add and things that I think are important and like that I should share are usually not aligned with either, you know, what my colleague thinks is interesting that I talk about, right, or wants to know more about, or what a, you know, industry friend thinks is like interesting that I'm working on that I think is boring, right, or that everyone else already knows about. With that kind of in mind, I thought instead of spending time on what I thought I should talk about or, you know, wanted to touch on or would be relevant, you know, to our audience, you know, why don't I actually ask our audience instead? You know, luckily I've been in this space for, gosh, I think almost 11 years, a little over 11 years, excuse me. And so I was able to reach out to, again, some friends in the industry, some old colleagues, current clients, old clients, and I just texted them and said like, hey, look, I'm going on this podcast. I'm going to be talking about my career and kind of like what led me here today. And I have some time, you know, to answer questions or, you know, to kind of bring the topic that I want to touch on to the show. You know, what, if you were to have me on, what's one question, keyword there, what's one question you would ask? And everyone was so
So
kind
did
and so
you,
generous.
so let me pause you for a second. Did you actually send like personal emails or did you send this as like BCC, a bunch of people?
I sent personal text.
Oh, personal texts. Okay.
Yeah, I said
asking the
personal
one
text.
question that I should ask you or that you should answer on this show. Great.
Yeah.
So did you get back a bunch of one question answers? Or
Everyone was so generous. They gave me like 3 or 4 each.
Wow.
I think there's like one or two people who I think just gave me one,
The rule
which
followers.
yeah. Because I was like, this wasn't supposed to be like me then like deciphering or like choosing out of all of those like what I thought was the best,
Right.
which I guess is a good position to be in. But it then got me thinking because as I'm reviewing these replies, I'm thinking, gosh, I'm pretty sure AI is involved in a good chunk,
Really?
of most of these. Yes, and at first I was a little hurt. I was like, oh, like what? And then I was like, well, would you like? I'm like, Kat, you would definitely probably like take this like text, paste it into ChatGPT, and like see whatever it gave you, copy and paste. I would remove the emojis and some other
Mm.
things, but like they were definitely cohesive, like way too thoughtful and like well planned and executed, and also way too fast of a reply.
So they were well composed. They were thoughtful. They probably had a lot of like M dashes in them.
Yes. ChatGPT loves the M dash.
Yes.
A lot of emojis, like each like
Mm.
bullets.
Yes.
He loves
Yes.
bullets. So, but like I
So
said,
can you give me an example of one of them that you think maybe is AI that someone wrote
yes,
back?
definitely.
You don't have to attribute it. You don't have to call them out, right?
Yeah, right. What daily habit or mindset shift has compounded the most impact on your career? This is
Oh,
like also not how this person
absolutely.
speaks. And I was like, buddy, thank you. I'm like, thank you, but also like, what?
Right. That sounds like a job interview, like
Yeah.
screening question where you're sitting there like sweating with like compounded. Like
I was like, what?
what are they getting at?
My gosh. But again, like it was a good lesson because I was like, you probably would do this as well. And then it really then got me thinking more, how is AI even showing up in the industry in work, and how has it really shaped my career? And believe it or not, I would not I would not be where I am today in owning like my own firm, being a one woman show if it weren't for AI and Canva, like 100%.
Take
AI
us
has
through that. Like where
yeah.
did you start? Because I imagine in school for you, you weren't learning AI and things like that. So just
No.
take us through like, kind of like how you
No.
got started and like when was this pivot point
Yeah.
where AI
Yeah.
became so important?
Yeah, so I would say probably in February, March of 2023, I started playing around with ChatGPT. I think it came out in November of 2022, if I'm correct. So just a couple months later. It was not very good back then. And it was something as simple as like almost sort of like, I was having this conversation the other day, and it's sort of like, do you remember the beginning of askjeeves.com where you would like type in the full question? Like, what is a broken kneecap called? Now we're just like broken kneecap, like
Right,
what, like
right, right.
we're not like,
Punctuation, making
yes,
sure
and
you
like
got the
all
sentence
formal.
structure. Yes.
Right, right. So the early days was definitely like, hi, I want you to please act like, and like just like so detailed and like just way more involved than it definitely needed to be. But like at that point we're all still getting outputs like what's like the usual one, which is like in a trying world like ETFs, and you're just like, we don't, no, stop, like we don't need to like talk about the world or like what like
Right, right.
luckily we've moved past that. But now it's everything from your call note taker to setting up calendar events, whatnot, writing all my social media posts. Like I will blatantly
Mm.
say that I decided, I'm like, do you want to say this out loud, do you want to admit this? But like my personal ones it writes, gosh, like I feel like it writes all my emails.
So it knows you at this point
It,
enough
Oh,
to
it knows me quite well. I've fed it the entire ETF rule book like last
mm,
year, so that if I'm having issues like with compliance and I'm not getting feedback
mm,
on which rule they're pointing to, right, or what potentially could be the solution if not for what I wanted to do, right? And that like that has come in handy. But I truly do believe that your LLMs, can only be as good as you, or as good as the investment that you put into it, right? Because I'm not just simply saying like write a social media post, right? Like it's so much more involved than that. And having the creativity of being like, hey, like, this is what I want it to look like. These are the things I want to touch on. And then from there, like getting your response and then having them tweak it from there. Right. So, I mean, it's come so far, and it's amazing. Like every day I'm just like blown away by what it can do, what it can code now. But I think, there's a lot of.
So Catherine, I'm going to stop you right there just
Yeah,
to
please.
make sure that every time I hear jargon, that we make sure that we're defining it for all of our
Yeah.
amazing listeners. So LLM means what?
An LLM is a language learning model. And most of what AI that we are using today, like in our industry, would be LLMs, meaning ChatGPT is an LLM, Claude is an LLM, Perplexity, LLM. And LLMs work by those AI systems like being prompted to do something. So
So different from like the drones that we're hearing about that are sort of run by AI, where they like have a mission and then they are like self-correcting and learning how to do it. That would be a different.
that sounds like more like an autonomous AI agent that was
Yes.
trained. So that's very different, because no one is on the opposite end of that drone being like, okay, turn left now turn right. Oh, looks like your left wing, I don't know anything about drones, looks like your left wing is broken, like pull over to repair, right? Like it just, but I'm wondering also, is it getting triggered by some sort of code that's set up so that like if there is an issue with that wing, right, then that trigger, that prompt
Mm-hmm.
then tells the drone. So I'm not quite sure, but the whole point is you are giving it a prompt, you are giving it directions, you are
Yes.
talking to it, and then you're getting a response. That is an LLM. And like I said, most of us are using ChatGPT, Claude, or Perplexity. Those are definitely the three I use, my favorite ones. But
so you mentioned that in, what was it, 2023, you really started digging into ChatGPT this way. What were you doing before then? Like what is your background?
Right. So I had no intention of getting into the ETF space at all. I didn't study finance. I did not even know what ETFs were. Back in 2014, gosh, I was a couple of years out of school, and I was doing case management at a personal injury law firm in Irvine. And
Wow.
a colleague at the time who was on maternity leave calls me or texts me one day and is like, hey, someone I used to babysit for, ETF Trends IT guy, like said that his client is looking for like some marketing help. Like, I think you'd be a good fit. I'm like, what the heck? I'm like,
Wow.
okay, Callie. Like, I'm like 26 at the time. I'm like, all right, girl. Like, well, thanks, appreciate it. And so I then email ETF Trends IT guy, Noble, and he puts me in touch with Tom Lydon. Again, had no idea who Tom Lydon was, didn't know anything. We set up some time to meet at the local El Torito to have an interview. So I was interviewed there.
Over tacos and tequila?
No, more like tortillas and butter, which was actually, that was my first tortilla and butter experience at El Torito. It was great. So thank you, Tom, for that, among so much more, but really thank you for that. So yeah, and then I was hired, I'm pretty sure like on the spot or like by the next day. And I remember I went to Barnes and Noble and got ETFs for Dummies and tried to read it.
Smart move. Yeah.
Did not work very well, but that was great. And that was my entry into the ETF space. And at that point, gosh, like ETFs were probably 22, 23 years old. So still so young, as we both know, the space is so small, and yeah, it's just the same faces, same familiar faces, which I love over and over again. So I didn't really turn back since El Torito. But after a couple years at ETF Trends, I left and went over to Arrow, which is a marketing and PR firm. I spent a little over 7 years there. That was great. Arrow does amazing design, way better than any AI or way better than Canva, with like gorgeous design, marketing, and then they also do a great job with PR as well. After like 7.5 years, I was, I guess, to be completely blunt, just bored. I was ready, like ready for more of a challenge. And, within an agency, there's only so far you can go, right, without being the owner. And so I left and also did not have any intention of starting my own thing, but, different friends or old clients, mentors were reaching out. And I think Dave Abner was the first one to actually get me to do something, but he's pushing me to help him with a website while he was doing consulting. It's not the Lion website. If anyone sees that, that is not my work. I've had a couple people ask me that. I'm like, no, that's not mine. So sorry, Dave, but it's still on the internet and I don't want to be associated with that. But asking me for help and to do things. Eventually I started taking those things on one by one. Fast forward to a little over 2 years. Here we are today, which.
So what are you most proud of with Catnip?
Yeah.
What is it that you love to point to?
Honestly, I'm flying by the seat of my pants, and I'm just proud to be here every day, and so grateful to be here. This journey of entrepreneurship has been so much more vulnerable than I ever thought it would be. I've never had an issue following up, or I don't know, just getting on calls before. That was never a problem. I never second guessed it. And now all of a sudden, when it's just you yourself and no one else, it's all of a sudden it's completely different, which might seem obvious, but was not something I was expecting. That's something I'm really proud of. And then also just, I think when we are working for someone else, whether it's a small agency or even a large corporation, it's very easy to box ourselves in as to what we do and who we are, right? I am a writer, right? I am a product manager, I'm a product marketer, right? And it's you just kind of have these blinders on. And so with starting my own business, I was oh, I also can do this. And I'm also this. And I'm oh, and I can also do that. So I think that's something I'm extremely proud of. Not to say that any past employer ever held me back, but everyone has their role. And so.
Well, I love that you see that as an advantage in that you don't have these specific hats that you have to put on. I know that a number of folks that I'm very close to in the industry, as we've sort of left corporate jobs over decades and we start consulting, it's hard to say no to things when we should, because there's only so many hours. There's, and I know I started consulting right out of, leaving my corporate job. And I realized that I was doing far more just referring out. I was I can't, no, I know what I'm really good at and I know how much time I have. And then I started writing. So it was even less time. So the fact that you can stay in sort of that assertive, hungry, I can put on all the hats and I'm good at it is really very exciting. So how has AI helped you stay in that space?
Yeah. So definitely I do have to constantly decide on a day-to-day basis, one, it's whatever's making me money, that's all I'll work on. I'm what is this making you money? No. Do you have other things that would? Yes. Okay. You have to work on those. Besides that, how, deciding
nice
from
priority.
Right.
Yeah.
But from there, it's okay, now what do I want to work on next? Right. And having so many ideas, and 100% is something that I throw into ChatGPT and ask hey, look, these are all the things I want to do. These are all my crazy ideas. This is just a random one I had today. What should I go after? What shouldn't I go after? How should I organize this? And, how do I slowly but surely chip away at each project and whatnot. So definitely it's dictating my schedule, help keeping me accountable there and being a project manager. But yeah, there are not enough hours in the day. And I think AI can either make you even more productive, which is a slippery slope. Phil Bach, who used to be in our space and still kind of around, he had this quote about AI, and it was about the walking escalators at the airports. And he's look, AI is this. You can get on a walking escalator, AI, and walk to your destination, right? And that would be the equivalent of you taking the time back that you're getting from AI to do things with it you actually want to do, that you love, right? Or resting or
Mm,
relaxing or like, being out in nature, right? Not something that's actually productive, to make you money because like, you need more money to whatever. He's like, or you can get on and run. And then that's just like being more productive, more productive, more productive. So he's like, and I couldn't agree with that more. So while I can give you your time back, I can also make you more and more productive. And so there is that saying no constantly.
mm,
Also reminding yourself like that I'm not a robot. Like we are around
right.
technology all day long. Like Gen Z so fast. Like I see interns doing stuff and I'm like, oh my gosh, like how are you guys doing it like that quickly? And then I think I've got to be faster and I'm like, whoa, just slow your roll. So
Or you can be more discerning. I'm a youth leader, a volunteer
yeah.
with Young Life, and so I'm
Oh, I
around
used to be
teens.
in Young Life and was a Capernaum leader.
Oh, special needs, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
great.
so I've been involved with Young Life for a long time, but this is the first year I've ever been an actual leader. I've done a lot of like the committee and the background
Hmm.
kind of work, but I really felt called into it. It was just really strange timing, but last night I was driving some teens home and one of the girls was showing me this image and she's like, "Hey, does this look like me?" And
Hmm.
I'm like, "No."
Hmm.
And she's like, "Oh, okay, let me work on it a little bit more." And I'm like, "What are you doing?" I didn't understand what she was doing at all. Like
Yeah.
that's how like kind of clueless I was. But it was an image of like two people together, like kind of hugging, almost
Yeah.
like a prom picture.
Yeah.
And and so I was like, and so finally she shows me and I'm like, yeah, I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, oh, well, it's my crush. So I'm creating, and this is
Oh,
a guy that like she goes to high school with,
oh,
but now she's like creating
I
this
know.
picture
Oh gosh.
of the two of them together. And I'm like, okay, super sweet, but
A
also
little
like,
creepy.
where are you posting that? Yeah,
Yeah.
because like it's not actually true.
Oh,
So
well, that's, I
I
know.
decided
I
to
know.
just kind of use it as kind of like that authenticity, like what are you trying to do here? And she's like, no, I'm just using it for myself. Like, I just think it's really fun to see myself that way. And oh, wow. Because if she had sent that to me without me knowing that she was
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
working on it to make it look more and more
Yeah.
like her, I would have thought it was an
Oh,
absolute a
yeah.
picture of her and her boyfriend.
Yeah, it
And
gets
it's a boy
scary.
that she's never actually even spoken to.
Oh,
So,
to be a high
yes,
schooler and like to have like all
I
those
know.
woes, like my heart goes out to
I
her
know.
for that, like in that sense. But
Me
like,
too.
I mean, yeah, or I'm assuming we've all at this point, seen some sort of celebrity, or news anchor that is like not
Right.
them, but it's AI, and
Yes.
and you're like,
Yes.
there are like, just like the writing, like I think there are some indicators, but it's the
Mm.
animal videos that get me every time. I'm like, is that a
Yes.
killer whale real or not? Or is it AI?
Right.
But it is
Right.
scary, and that's a whole nother form of like potentially blackmail, or defamation, like through images.
Right.
So
Yep.
it is, it's scary in that sense, or, just everything just being on the
But
internet.
but you were saying too,
Hmm.
like how this next generation has become so comfortable. So like there's power in that comfortableness, but then obviously there's needs to be some boundaries and
Right.
guardrails and all of those things as well. And you were saying you've really sort of harnessed how it can speed you through some of like the iterations that you might need to go through in order
Hmm.
to get to like, good content.
Mm.
So take us maybe a little bit more to that authenticity
Yeah.
versus productivity. Like where do you recommend your clients kind of find that line?
Right. So I think more than anything, it needs to start with understanding, the firm's brand, right? And like that message. And, why your firm, why these products, why now? Like, what are you actually helping investors, traders, whoever your audience is, with or to do? And this is a horrible, boring task. Most people don't do it. It's also like very hard to stay loyal to a finance brand to an asset manager brand
Mm,
unless like you're QQQ or VU. So,
right.
it's hard to do is what I'm trying to say. And so if you're, staring at the screen being like, oh gosh, like I don't know, I probably should know, but I don't. I think a lot of people are in that place. But if you have that messaging down, right? And from there, you are putting it into whichever LLM that you're using. A lot of firms have custom ones even now. But let's say you're using ChatGPT, for example. ChatGPT has something that's called projects where you can then go in and like add all your fact sheets, add all your messaging, right? Like add your tone of voice, maybe add a white paper, your prospectuses, like all these different documents, right? That then the LLM will pull from and only for that when you are going to ask for different things to help with. These are some suggestions that I give clients to, on how to use or what to use ChatGPT or different LLMs with. So once you've put information into the back end, again, in ChatGPT, it would be a project. You'll then from there just reference that project every single time, right? So reference project XYZ. And then from there, have it help with your press releases, right? Like, and again, nothing it puts out is final. Like you need to review everything. You should definitely check numbers, even if you are providing the data. And like, you're like, hey, how should I design this chart, right? Or how should I design these two charts within a PowerPoint, 16 by 9? Like, just check, like do yourself a solid. But, press releases, I think, anytime, like just anything to help you get started on any writing project, whether it's like, hey, this is my idea. This is who we are, as you know. This is where this is the end point I want to get to. Can you create an outline? Or like, how does this work, right? Anytime I think you want to understand your audience better, whether it's like pulling in different comments that you're seeing or conversations that you've had or, comments back that you've gotten from different sales conversations, and even just throwing those into ChatGPT and saying, hey, like, this is the feedback we're getting, like, what do you think? And like, just seeing even what it comes out with, or even giving it your sales pitch and asking for objections, I think is a great way to use it from a sales standpoint. But honestly, like, I could go on and on, but you also do need to be careful of like proprietary information, right? And like, are you giving away your secret sauce? I think, right, especially in our industry, that's something that we have to be careful with. But I mean, I don't know if you saw that Claude came out with Claude Financial Services, and they're now partnering with Morningstar, S&P, FactSet, Deloitte, and a couple others. And, I'm curious to see, because the same question there, like, are you then giving away like your edge when you're, using that LLM, right?
I think it's something you definitely need to figure out how much of it is intrinsically yours by using it to sort of smooth it out, or using it to help with voice, using it to create more content. The content that you've just added into it now becomes everybody's ability to use as well. So if you're on one of the, publicly available ones, I was at a university recently, and they were talking about AI in instruction. And it was really interesting. It was a business entrepreneur class that they were speaking about. And they were like, you know what? At first it was like, okay, how do we turn everything off? How do we make sure they have like pencil and paper so that they don't, like no one's using any technology.
We're going back to Amish times. Like, let's go. Yeah.
Exactly. In order to like, make sure no one's using technology. And instead they like embraced it with like, okay, we're going to figure out how to write the best business plan for, whatever business that they had come up with. So the very first thing they're doing is they're using ChatGPT. So their starting point is everything that ChatGPT can do. And then over the course of a whole semester, they are then doing the work to make that better.
Right.
So instead of like restricting it, they're basically saying, hey, let's start where we already know. And then let's figure out what's missing, where are the opportunities. Yeah. Let's be creative. Let's brainstorm. And I just thought that was so powerful, because these kids they're going to be graduating. It's all going to be part of this. Like, we can't, we're not going to be stealing it from them and then making them not competitive.
No. I mean, listen, I think that's something a lot of times what I will do, no matter what LLM I'm using, like I'll just simply start with like, hey, what do you know? What do you know about ABC? And just seeing what it comes out with, I'm like, okay, great, but you forgot all these things. And it's like, oh, right. Okay. Like, and then from there, then like, I will ask my question. Like, okay, so now I know where you actually are at, like a quick pulse check. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Now let's go into it, right? Or another one I like heard recently was asking the LLM, like, hey, if you were in my shoes, having to ask you, the LLM, like ABC, how would you do it? And just kind of getting different responses that way. But that's another downside of it, is that you can get responses all day long, and you can compare those responses to Claude,
Mm,
and then compare those ones to like
right.
Perplexity, and then the next thing you know, it's been 3 hours, and you're like, I don't even know
Yes.
what version I like.
Right. Right. So, you know, companies that are either in the ETF space, or we have a lot of listeners outside of the ETF space that just really like to understand leadership
Mm,
and, career success. If they haven't embraced any AI in their business, they've been a little worried
yeah.
about, some of the things we've talked about with giving up their secret sauce, or just time commitments, or even what it should be trustworthy with.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you have for like getting started with integrating AI into their business?
Yeah. So I would just start with the free version of ChatGPT. That's honestly like probably the best model to use right now. If you do not want if you don't want ChatGPT to share how you are using it for the betterment of that AI, you can turn it off. You can toggle that off. I'm not sure if Sam Altman's really abiding by that, but so they say. I've got mine
Right.
turned off. Quote unquote, like testing it, right? Maybe you have an outline already for a piece that you're writing, whether that be something that you're going to put on LinkedIn, or as like a white paper for like some random institution, right? And very niche. Start from the beginning, put your idea in there, and just see what outline it comes out with, right? And then compare it to what you already did. And I think in doing these tests, you will eventually see the benefits of it. And like I said before, like I really do feel that you're like it's an investment, and your LLM can only be as good as the time and energy that you put into it. And while I am worried, and no, and I am worried that like it will take jobs away. I do think that if you don't, I think if you refuse to jump on the bandwagon, then the likelihood of you getting left behind is much higher, unfortunately.
Mm. I have a friend who writes articles for kind of the hospitality industry.
Mm,
And I thought it was really interesting what she does. She does a lot of voice recordings of her own impressions of where she's gone or what she's writing
mm-hmm.
about. And then she just feeds that entire sort of transcript of her
Yeah,
voice recording into it. And it creates her information, in a form that's palatable, as opposed to having to edit that. I just thought, wow, that's,
it's
it's
nice.
powerful.
It's
And
nice.
it reminds me of your escalator,
Yeah,
your
yeah, yeah,
horizontal
yeah,
escalators
yeah,
through airports. It gets you there much
yeah.
faster. And she's able to, sort of keep up with the amount of work that obviously that she has to do.
Yeah, honestly, it's a great assistant, and it could be a very
Mm,
basic assistant, that barely scratches the surface, or if you put time and effort into it, it can be an executive assistant maybe.
right.
So,
So your clients coming out of Catnip,
mhm,
with the work that you do for them,
mhm.
and then using AI as sort of an enhancer, and probably giving you first round outlines and drafts and all those kind of things. What is it that your clients are wanting from you,
Mhm.
and a visual of what that looks like in terms of what is your thought leadership that goes into it, and what is the things that you rely on AI to do?
Yeah, so I would say actually more recently, definitely most of this year, actually, it's been more about marketing strategy, and where does their product fit? What will their message be based on who their audience is? And then from there, looking at their budget and deciding, okay, based on who you think your audience is in that message and your budget, this is where, like, these are the channels that I think you guys should be spending time and money in. This is how I think you should do that. This is how I think you should track it, right? Because marketing is a science until it's not, because unfortunately we're dealing with humans and we're erratic. So, so I would say that's really more how I've been helping issuers and different players within the ETF space this year, just because there are so many, new players, and there's so many ETFs out there now, and marketing is expensive, advertising is expensive, PR is expensive, and you got to get ahead. And so you can't just,
Right.
do a webcast on day one when you have no performance and hope that's going to move the needle. And I just find those conversations interesting. But yeah.
Absolutely.
So I would say, that's in regards to AI and how it helps with the strategy. I would say more from like understanding, especially for the newer issuers or smaller guys that don't have a lot of data, understanding potentially like where their different audiences are coming from, right? Like what are their pain points? What potential like language would we use in a message for them versus, the general like overarching message. But I wouldn't say so much as like a writing, except for maybe some social media stuff, but honestly, not really, because like you and I both know, there's only so much we can say and about the ETF and how we can't really get that creative. And I also feel like in the last 2 years, it's been more of like ticker, kind of going back like to like a decade ago. With that comes again, like less creativity. So yeah, it's kind of like a non-answer answer to your question.
Appreciate that. I appreciate that. And it sounds like it's less fancy decks, buzzwords, a lot of writing, and a lot more of the strategy, which I think makes a lot of sense. And I appreciate all of the tips you've given us for ways in which to use AI. I think personally, this has been probably more difficult for someone like me who's under contract not to use AI in her writing, because, publishers are big on making sure that books novels are written by authors, right? So that we're not ChatGPT.
That's what I'm reading about right now, actually.
Which is crazy. And, and right now, I mean, I can absolutely tell something that, a story of someone that's, put it in a ChatGPT and all the weird things that, so I appreciate that. But then because of me being under contract, I tend to like shy away from all uses of ChatGPT, even turned off the little feature on my phone where it will like find answers for me. But I do know that they don't ban me from using it at all. It's just one of those things that I have to be more careful about. And I want to be more careful about. Like, I want voice actors that do the narration of my book and other books to be paid, and to be, because it's a creative, I think all those creative endeavors are really important, as we're all sort of watchful for not dehumanizing ourselves with what AI can do, but using it to sort of enhance the things that are maybe fact gathering and efficiency making and other ideas. And I know you use it a lot for brainstorming and almost like an assistant. And I think those are just such powerful ways to use a technology that is only growing and only getting better.
Right. Yeah. Like, it's almost like it's going to help you do the things that you don't want to do on your to-do list, so that you can get to, that bigger item or bigger items, or the frog, so to speak. Right. Like, I don't want to make this phone call. I don't want to figure out this. I don't want to make these dentist appointments, whatever. Right. But like, we have to do those things, and they're timely. And so I kind of think of it like that. Like, how can it free up time for me to work on the projects like that I'm actually interested in, right? Or that pay the bills.
Right. Well, thank you, Kat, so much. I mean, I think your perspective here, your willingness to kind of go into this and help educate us and give us ideas, super insightful. Thank you. So our last question is a book recommendation. So anything that you're currently reading or recently reading, or something you want to kind of put out into the TBRs, to be read piles of our listeners?
Yeah. So it's funny because I'm actually reading this book called Searches: Selfhood in the Digital Age. And it's actually about this journalist, used to be, I think, at the New York Times or Wall Street Journal. She's then became a freelancer, yada, yada, yada. But she's now, trying to figure out like, where does AI fit in, right? And like and what happens to all these authors, right? And these books, and like, do they actually end up in, within these like LLM databases or not? I would not recommend that book. It's a little interesting, but it's also a little slow, and probably could have been an email. So
so you need ChatGPT it to like give you this.
She uses
give you the talking notes.
like throughout the book, and has her like review, has ChatGPT like review certain sections of the book and like give responses back. So it's interesting in that sense. But my favorite book of all time is The Heart's Invisible Theories.
Hearts?
The Heart's
Invisible Theories?
Invisible Theories by John Boney, I believe it's probably pronounced Boyne. So hearts is possessive. So The Heart's Invisible Theories.
Awesome. And what is it about?
It's a coming of age.
Okay.
An Irishman, and it was one of those books that's on the longer side, but once it wrapped up, I was like, oh, wait, what? And I was like, oh my, it came together so beautifully, and I had to go back and read it because I was like, oh girl, you were sleeping on those characters and you didn't even know. But yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah. That's great. Okay, so we're going to do something different on your episode than we've done for any of the 85 episodes that's come so far. And that is that I always create the title of the episode, but we are going to transcript this, send it into ChatGPT, and it's going to tell us what the emoji-less title is for,
Yes. Okay. I love
our podcast.
I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me, Christine. It's been lovely chatting with you, and can't wait till the podcast comes out. The episode comes out.
Thank you so much, Kat, and have fun in San Francisco.
Bye.
Bye-bye. And thank you, our listeners, for spending your time with us. I hope this is not just information, but you let it be transformational in how you think about your career. I'm rooting for you. If you're an Apple user, I'd really appreciate it if you took a few seconds to leave a rating and a review. Your ratings and reviews tell Apple that this is a podcast worth listening to. And in turn, your reviews will help We Talk Careers get in front of more listeners looking to succeed, just like you. And while you're there, go ahead and hit that follow button, because there's going to be another brand new episode and you don't want to miss it. Until then, keep thriving. Thank you for listening.